Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up. The Supreme Court just signaled that they are finally ready to cut a core protection of the Voting Rights Act and fundamentally reshape how it works. That is not theoretical. It is actually a seismic shift in the electoral process, and it smacks the Democrats right in the gut. This is going to be a good one, so make sure you like, comment, and watch to the end, and subscribe for more daily videos. It means so much to me. Jumping right into it, many Democratic-held House seats are in districts drawn under protections of Section 2 that favors minority voters. And if Section 2 is weakened or thrown out, state legislators, especially the ones controlled by the Republicans, could redraw maps that blunt or eliminate total districts. Redrawing those lines doesn't just affect one state. States in the South, border states, and a few up north too, where minority communities are concentrated but often lack control of map making. And with the Republicans controlling many of the state legislators, they would have the leverage to reshape multiple congressional maps in their favor, which can in turn push out vulnerable Democrats or the previously safe Democratic seats. They can make them competitive now. And make no mistake, the Democrats have built much of their House strength on maps that are shaped by racial equity rules. Take those away or shrink them, and the playing field will tilt dramatically. And this ruling, if it does fully go that way, will be a gutting of all of the judicial tools that the Democrats have leaned on. They lose the ability to challenge maps that dilute the minority voting power, which is a core complaint under Section 2. They also will be losing predictability. All of those map challenge lawsuits will become harder, more risky, and less dependable. They are forced to rely more on turnout, persuasion, and raw demographic change, which means fewer safety nets. They are losing that protection that they used to have. For Democrats, their play is much harder now. They must fight at the political level now more than the legal level, by relying on turnouts, campaigns, grassroots power, or new voter rights legislation. They also have to try to keep all of the minority communities mobilized so that even under tougher maps, they can still retain influence. Now, the Supreme Court hasn't fully torn down the Voting Rights Act yet, but make no mistake, it did just give the Democrats a blow to the body. But for the Republicans, this is a once-in-a-generation opening. It means shifting the power from the courts and back to the legislators and the people. It means the possibility of reclaiming dozens of seats in Congress while also securing a long-term advantage. Let's start with this clip of CNN explaining how the potential party pickups will play out.
Actually represents pretty accurately, mathematically, how the country is divided over the question of the presidency. But if you look at this is what the party pickups would be for congressional districts. Republicans, 5. Missouri, 1. North Carolina, 1. Ohio, 2 or 3. Indiana, 1 or 2. Florida, still discussion down there, but that could be another gold mine for them if they tipped it even further their way. Kansas, 1. New Hampshire, 1. And Nebraska. Democrats, Utah, California, Maryland. Look at this. If you offset California and Texas, Missouri and Utah, North Carolina and Maryland, everything left over is an advantage to the Republicans. And don't forget, the Supreme Court is considering what could really be the end of the Voting Rights Act, which would protect minority groups. So you don't have a state that's half black, for example, that elects only one congressional member and everybody else goes to the Republicans that would represent that population in some ways. So if that is gutted, Democrats could lose 19 seats. This would be a huge amount. But this is also a measure of how much the White House is concerned about this, because Donald Trump knows if the Democrats get the House again, there could be new investigations just like last time. There could be a new impeachment. There could be a lot of impediment to these plans that right now the Republicans in the House and Senate are letting run like a freight train.
Viewing that clip and looking at all of the pickups, it's showing that it's gotten really, really bad. The Democrats could be potentially losing up to 19 seats. That is an entirely huge amount and could be very detrimental to the Democrats. The House, they run so much. They have so much control over a lot of things. And for the Democrats to be on the disadvantage and get removed from that, it would just be super bad for everyone involved. If half of a community of minorities is only voting for one congressional member, the rest will go to the other side. They will go to the Republican side. And that will make all of the Democrats lose seats. Now I want to look at a video of MSNBC going over the Voting Act. Take a look at this.
Tell me what was argued in front of the Supreme Court today and where it appears the justices were likely to fall.
So lawyers argued that Louisiana violated the Constitution when it drew a second majority Black district in order to comply with the Voting Rights Act. For decades, the Supreme Court has interpreted the Voting Rights Act to require these opportunity districts that have large Black and brown populations so that these communities can elect the representatives of their choice. But today, lawyers argued that that is unconstitutional, that taking race into account to draw districts, even if it is designed to boost representation for minorities, even if it is designed to remedy past discrimination against minorities, that violates the Equal Protection Clause by considering race, and that the Constitution must be colorblind. And it sounded like a majority of the justices are leaning toward embracing some form of that argument, which would essentially dismantle the Voting Rights Act as we know it today.
How do you know that that's the way that they were leaning?
All 6 of the Republican-appointed justices indicated that they think that the Voting Rights Act has essentially outlived its usefulness. Justice Brett Kavanaugh continually said that there has to be a time limit on any race-conscious law and suggested that the expiration date for the VRA has arrived. Justice Barrett suggested that Congress went beyond what the Constitution requires in prohibiting these kind of racially skewed maps, and that it couldn't be squared with the Equal Protection Clause. Justice Thomas, Justice Alito, Justice Gorsuch all indicated that protecting Black communities by drawing race-conscious maps that give them more representation is actually racial discrimination, that it is unconstitutional because of the mere consideration of race. And so the law, again, as we know it, must fall. Now, I don't know exactly how the justices will decide to dismantle the law. They could interpret it differently. They could strike it down. But all 6 of them seem to be leaning towards some kind of result that would radically weaken, if not altogether demolish, what we know of the Voting Rights Act today.
So if this does happen, if it is overturned, if your assessment of where they're leaning is correct, let us show what could be impacted. This is a few maps showing VRA-protected congressional districts that could be affected. There's one in Louisiana, there is another in Alabama, and there is another in Texas. And those are the number of specific districts that could change. You see Florida in there as well, and a few other states.
Listening to that clip, we can see that the Supreme Court justice, they aren't playing around anymore. The Supreme Court are leaning to a decision. They are saying that having the Voters' Right Act is actually racial discrimination because they're trying to use for minority groups, letting them vote and skew the maps to get people that represent them, which is in turn unfair to everyone else. You can't get the congressional leader you want and bring them in only because of the voting ways that you're having people do. Essentially, they are seeing that it actually goes against the Constitution. And that is not something they're approving of. So they might totally demolish the Voting Act, or they might just weaken it to the point where it doesn't even matter anymore. Because the main thing is to make sure everyone has a fair and opportunity, especially minorities who have it tougher than others most times. But it has to still be fair. We can't just wave it to their and skew everything to their perspective so we can get more representation. Lastly, I want to read this tweet. Breaking. Democratic voting rights groups are now frantically preparing for the Supreme Court to abolish the Voting Rights Act districts, resulting in a whooping 19 plus more Republican House seats being added. Holy smokes. These districts are drawn for minorities and favor Democrats. But SCOTUS is on the verge of overturning it per Politico. That calculation would all but guarantee Republican control of Congress. The case, Louisiana versus Callis, will be heard by SCOTUS in 1 week. SCOTUS Justice Clarence Thomas is sure to take a torch to this ridiculous practice of drawing districts based on race. End it once and for all. Reading that tweet, I can agree that it probably isn't best for us to be scaring the voting for race. Yes, race matters and it matters tremendously, but it needs to be a fair chance. We can't just elect someone who probably isn't the most qualified only because they're the race you want them to be. And if we take a look at the picture, we can see the small amount of Democratic parties that are getting their congressional members voted in. Surrounding them are all of the Republicans. It shows the inconsistencies. The areas that the Democrats currently have, if it's only based off of race, is not a fair choice and voting for the person who should be their representation. All we have left to see now is to see what the Supreme Court justices come up to. What is their decision? What are they going to say, overturn, or leave be? We don't know yet, but we can only hope for the best and hope that it helps this mess calm down a lot. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time on KW Lawholic.